Picture this: you're minding your business, enjoying a peaceful day, when an unexpected encounter with an officer turns into a test of patience and principle. In this episode, we meet a determined female cop who's clearly not having the day she expected. She approaches with authority, confident she's in control, but what happens next flips the script entirely. With the calm and firm use of legal knowledge, her demands are met with a surprising refusal that leaves her visibly frustrated. This interaction isn't about disrespect, it's about standing firm on your rights when faced with unnecessary pressure. Tensions rise, words are exchanged, and just when it seems like the situation might escalate further, an unexpected turn leaves the officer walking away empty-handed. How did it all unfold? And what lessons can we take from this intense exchange? Stick around to see how a calm, informed approach can turn the tables in the most unexpected way. The scene begins in a quiet neighborhood, where the peaceful afternoon air is interrupted by the sound of a patrol car pulling up. The officer steps out, her expression firm and her demeanor all business. She walks straight up to the individual, her voice carrying a sharp tone of authority as she demands identification. The person, calm and collected, listens carefully but doesn't rush to comply. Instead, they politely question the reason for her request, knowing full well their rights in this situation. It's clear the officer wasn't expecting this kind of pushback. Her frustration starts to show as she repeats her demands, her voice growing sharper with every passing moment. But the person doesn't waver, standing firm with a steady tone that only seems to fuel the tension. Onlookers begin to notice the scene, adding a subtle pressure to the moment. The officer glances around, perhaps aware that every word and action is being observed, and maybe even recorded. But what's really driving her persistence? That remains to be seen. The officer's frustration is becoming harder to mask. She shifts her stance, folding her arms as she tries a new angle, questioning why someone wouldn't simply comply if they had nothing to hide. The person remains steady, calmly explaining their position. They know their rights, they've done their homework, and they're determined not to give them up without good reason. It's a quiet strength that seems to catch the officer off guard, her usual strategies not landing the way she expected. Meanwhile, the tension continues to grow. A few neighbors have stepped out onto their porches, their curious eyes adding another layer of pressure to the unfolding scene. Someone nearby whispers, "What's going on?" while another discreetly pulls out their phone to start recording. The officer notices a flicker of annoyance crossing her face as she glances toward the growing audience. But instead of backing down, the individual takes this as an opportunity to ask more questions, calmly challenging the officer's reasoning. Each moment stretches out, the atmosphere charged with unspoken stakes. Something's got to give, but not yet. The officer's patience is wearing thin, and it's clear she's determined to take control of the situation. Her tone sharpens as she steps closer, trying to assert her authority, but the individual holds their ground. There's no shouting, no hostility, just calm, unwavering confidence in knowing their rights. The quiet resistance is almost more powerful than any argument could be, and it only seems to heighten the tension. By now, the small crowd of onlookers has grown. People are exchanging glances, whispering among themselves, wondering how far this will go. The officer glances at the phones aimed in her direction, visibly irritated, but still holding her composure. Her voice cuts through the murmurs as she delivers what feels like an ultimatum. She's all in now, trying to regain control of a moment that's slipping further out of her grasp. The air feels electric as the standoff reaches its peak. Every word, every movement feels heavy with importance. It's a standoff between power and principle, and everyone is waiting to see who will blink first. Just when it seems the tension can't get any higher, the officer shifts her approach. She radios for backup, her voice calm but laced with urgency. The crowd stiffens, sensing the situation might be about to escalate even further. The individual, still composed, takes a deep breath and addresses the officer again, pointing out the legality of the interaction and calmly questioning the need for reinforcements. It's a bold move, and for a brief moment, even the officer hesitates. But before anything else can unfold, a second officer arrives on the scene. This new presence changes the dynamic entirely. Unlike the first officer's commanding demeanor, the second one seems more measured, taking a moment to assess the situation. They exchange a quick conversation out of earshot, their tones low but visibly tense. The first officer gestures toward the individual, frustration written all over her face, while the second officer's expression remains unreadable. The crowd watches intently, the stakes now higher than ever. Is this new arrival going to escalate the situation further, or take it in a completely unexpected direction? The outcome feels closer, but no one knows which way it'll go. The second officer steps forward, their calm demeanor a stark contrast to the tension in the air. They approach the individual with a neutral expression, carefully listening as the person once again explains their rights and the lack of justification for the demands being made. The second officer nods slightly, their posture relaxed but attentive. The first officer, still visibly frustrated, interrupts, trying to regain control of the narrative. But then the unexpected happens. The second officer turns to their colleague and quietly but firmly explains that the individual is within their rights to refuse. The first officer's face shifts. Surprise, frustration, and disbelief all flash across her expression. For a moment, it seems like she might push back, but the second officer's steady tone leaves little room for argument. The crowd watches in silence as the first officer reluctantly steps back, muttering under her breath before heading toward her car. As the patrol car pulls away, the second officer briefly acknowledges the individual, a subtle nod of respect. The twist? The second officer's intervention wasn't just about diffusing the situation. It was a reminder that knowing the law doesn't just protect individuals, it holds everyone accountable, even those in uniform. As the patrol car disappears down the street, the tension in the air begins to ease. The individual takes a moment to thank the second officer for their professionalism before calmly walking away. The crowd slowly disperses, some still murmuring about what they just witnessed. A few offer nods of approval, and one person even remarks, "That was impressive, standing your ground like that." The individual, now alone, reflects on what just happened. It wasn't about causing a scene or challenging authority for the sake of it. It was about staying calm under pressure, knowing their rights, and handling the situation with dignity. Encounters like this highlight the importance of being informed, not just for personal protection, but to help ensure accountability in every interaction. This experience serves as a reminder that respect is a two-way street. Sometimes, standing firm isn't just an act of self-defense. It's a quiet but powerful way to advocate for fairness and transparency. And today, that message came through loud and clear.